Have you ever locked eyes with your own best friend while she's kissing your husband? Across a candlelit table, I felt my breath catch in my throat the moment I recognized her laugh. Light, familiar, the same. Laugh we'd shared over late-night gossip. We were at La Petite Rose, the little bistro where he'd first asked me to marry him. Twinkling lights overhead, a violinist drifting from one table to the next. I should have been celebrating our 10th anniversary. Instead, I was frozen in place, wine glass trembling in my hand, watching two people I trusted betray me. It started with a wrong turn down the dessert menu. I asked for the lemon tart. He ordered the chocolate mousse, and my best friend, Julia, sitting beside him, asked for the creme brulee. The tiny spoon came with a delicate crackle. I scooped the sugar dome, and there he was leaning across the table, fingers brushing Julia's. I blinked once, twice. No, my mind refused to believe it. The violinist paused for a dramatic flourish, and I heard my own heart hammer. I looked at him, expecting surprise, shame, anything. Instead, he smiled at Julia, his eyes full of something tender I'd never seen in 10 years of marriage. Julia's cheeks flushed under the candlelight. My pulse thundered. They didn't see me. I placed the tart on the table with too much force. The porcelain rattled against the wood. Heads turned. The violinist hesitated, then reached for a higher note. A waiter hovered. I realized I hadn't exhaled. My exhale felt like a scream trapped behind my ribs. "Are you okay, love?" His voice was silk, gentle, caring. I opened my mouth to lie, but the words choked me. Instead, I whispered, "I need air." He frowned, reached for my hand, but Julia beat him to it, squeezing my fingers. "You know me better than that," she purred. I recoiled. I stood, chair scraping. Napkin left abandoned on my lap. The waiter offered a linen cloth. I refused. The air felt thick, like breathing syrup. I stumbled past tables coated in white linen, dim candlelight flickering over wine glasses. My guests turned in their seats. When I reached the foyer, the warm night breeze hit me like a wave, and I sank against the glass door. I heard footsteps, hers, soft, careful. He knelt beside me. "Please," he whispered, "let's talk." I shook my head, so hard my ponytail swung like a pendulum. "Don't," I choked out. Julia's voice drifted behind me, calm, practiced. "Sweetheart, he was only showing me that song you hate," she said, her hand on my shoulder. The lie tasted like poison. I forced myself to look at her. Her eyes shone with feigned concern. I remembered slumber, parties in college, pillow fights, secrets traded under the stars. That Julia, she was the keeper of my childhood self, the guardian of my dreams. And here she was, wearing my betrayal like a badge. I bolted down the street without so much as a backward glance. The night air slapped my cheeks. My mind raced. How long had it been going on? At the office holiday party? During our beach vacation last summer? Months, years, stretching back, invisible until tonight. I stopped at a corner cafe still open, neon sign buzzing, shelves lined with pastries, the soft hum of espresso machines. I slipped inside, slid onto a stool at the counter. The barista offered a sympathetic nod. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said gently. I managed a shaky laugh. "Something like that." I ordered water, no coffee, but my voice cracked. The cafe was warm, safe, full of strangers who didn't know me. As I sipped, I texted my sister. "Emergency. Can you come pick me up?" I hit send before I could second-guess myself. My phone buzzed instantly. On my way. Where are you? I typed the cafe name and stared at the wall clock. Each tick felt like a moment closer to shattering completely. I pulled open my wallet, checked my ring, empty. I swallowed. The ring, our photos, the memories, all felt meaningless now. My sister arrived, careening into the parking spot. She ran in, arms outstretched. "What happened?" she demanded, her eyes blazing. I closed them and the tears came, hot, relentless. Julia," I whispered into her shoulder. She stiffened, then all fury drenched her tone. "That bitch!" Her strength anchored me. She flagged the barista for a doggy bag of pastries and a teapot of chamomile. "You're safe here," she said, plopping into the stool beside me. She held my hand as I told her every whispered suspicion, every unanswered question. The floodgates opened. How I'd woken up lonely despite his arms around me, how late-night phone vibrations felt, heavier than our wedding rings, how I'd blamed myself for the distance. When I finished, I felt hollow, raw, but I also felt something fierce rising. Anger, clarity, resolve. Betrayal had pulled me from the darkness. Now it would light my path forward. "Okay," my sister said, voice calm but firm. "First step, call your lawyer. Second, delete his number. Third, I'm sleeping here tonight." I laughed through tears. He cheats, I crash at my sister's. Classic me. She squeezed my hand. "You're not alone." And in that moment, I realized that the real anniversary gift I needed wasn't chocolates or bouquets. It was the fierce protection of chosen family and the knowledge that betrayal might break us, but solidarity rebuilds us. I stood, shoulders squared. The cafe's neon glowed behind me like a badge of survival. I straightened my coat, wiped my cheeks, and took a deep breath. The night was still young, and I had a story to reclaim. They say anger fades with sleep, but at dawn, mine was a roaring furnace. By the time the sky lightened, I'd already drafted 3 emails, one to a family lawyer asking about separation, one to my bank disputing joint card charges, and one to my boss requesting a day off for personal reasons. My hand shook as I hit send, adrenaline and grief mingling in my veins. It felt surreal, this sudden thrust into adult chaos while my wedding ring still gleamed on my finger. My sister arrived at my apartment with 2 steaming lattes and a folder of legal pamphlets. We sat at the kitchen table, sunlight slanting through the blinds, cutting across divorce brochures like stark beams of truth. "We'll go through this together," she said, sliding documents toward me. I took a deep breath and began reading grounds for no-fault divorce in our state, asset division guidelines, temporary custody orders if kids were involved. My mind whirled. I realized I didn't know how to untangle our lives. "First," she said, "we secure your finances." She showed me how to place a fraud alert on my credit report so he couldn't drain our savings in a haze of guilt. Then she walked me through changing our joint passwords, closing our joint accounts, opening new ones in my name. Each click felt like peeling away a layer of betrayal. By midday, I had an appointment booked with a lawyer. I slipped on a blazer or something about dressing for battle and stepped into his polished office. He greeted me with a firm handshake and a stack of forms. "I'm so sorry you're here," he said. His sympathy was a salve. He asked me to recount what happened. The dinner, the messages, the way betrayal had unfolded in plain sight. I spoke calmly, summarizing facts. He nodded, legal pad scribbling. Behind me, "We'll file a petition today," he said. You'll have temporary orders for exclusive use of the house and support until court. My heart thudded. The legal machinery was rolling. Walking out, I felt both hollow and empowered. Hired a lawyer, planted a stake. It was real. I texted my sister, step 1 done. She replied instantly, next, mental health. And that's exactly what I needed. That afternoon, I arrived at a counseling center, a small brick building tucked behind a florist's shop. Inside, the air smelled like eucalyptus and quiet. The counselor, Dr. Malik, greeted me with a soft smile and offered tea. Her office was lined with books on trauma, resilience, and grief. We sat face to face. I told her about the dinner, the cafe, the legal whirlwind. She listened, without interruption. When I paused, she asked gently, "What do you need most right now?" I blinked. I didn't know. "To feel safe again," I whispered. She nodded. "Safety is our foundation. Let's build it." She guided me through grounding. Exercises, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 senses. Name 5 things I could see, 4 I could feel, 3 I could hear, 2 I could smell, 1 I could taste. Simple tools to wrest control from panic. I practiced in her office, then alone in my living room, reminding my body that I belonged to myself, not to his. Secrets. That evening, I traded my battle blazer for sweatpants and ordered Thai food, spicy noodles, and crispy tofu, because comfort sometimes arrives on a takeout tray. My sister and a few close friends gathered around my kitchen island. We toasted with sparkling water and lemon slices. "To survival," they cheered. I laughed, genuine and shakier than usual. They shared stories, their own heartbreaks, the unexpected ways they'd emerged stronger. Their honesty was electric, proof that betrayal didn't have to be a silent tomb. Over the next week, I carved out routines. Mornings for yoga, sun salutations that felt like reclaiming my body. Middays for work, pouring energy into projects I'd neglected while marriage felt solid. Afternoons for therapy and journaling. Evenings for friends or solo movie. Nights, rom-coms to remind me that happiness existed beyond rings and promises. Each day I added a new ritual, a gratitude list, a 10-minute walk, a phone call to someone I loved. Small anchors in stormy seas. Then came the hardest step, face-to-face confrontation. Not with him, that was too raw, but with Julia, my best friend since childhood, now a turncoat in pearls. I arranged to meet her at the park, neutral ground, open air, no fancy bistro to trigger heartbreak. She arrived, sneakers, scuffing gravel, awkward smile faltering when she saw my expression, calm, resolute eyes no longer clouded by disbelief. We sat on a bench under a plane tree. She fidgeted with her phone. "I'm sorry," she began, voice low. But her words tangled. I held up my hand. "Just tell me one thing," I said quietly. "Why?" She inhaled sharply. "It just happened. We started texting, then meeting. I know it was wrong, but I thought you knew the marriage was in trouble." Her eyes pleaded. I felt the familiar knot of anger and pity. "You thought I knew? You thought I was oblivious?" I asked, voice tight. She shook her head. "I thought I was helping him feel alive," she confessed. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm so sorry." Her apology was a flimsy umbrella in a storm. I stared at her, heart achingly full of memories, sleepovers, summer road trips, late-night ice, cream runs. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to erase our history. But I breathed and said, "I forgive you," not because forgiveness was easy, but because I needed to free myself from fury. But I can't have you in my life right now. I stood, leaving her stunned. As I walked away, I felt a bittersweet relief, closure unfolding with each step. Back at home, I collapsed onto the sofa, tears emerging unbidden. But these tears washed away bitterness. They were cleansing. I texted my sister, "Done." She replied, "Proud of you." Weeks later, I sat across from my husband at the mediation table. The lawyer, his lawyer, the mediator. The session was civil, division of assets, arrangements for visitation with our cat, splitting debts. We talked about the house, the 401k, the time we'd spent building a life together. He spoke quietly, sometimes meeting my gaze, sometimes glancing away. I felt no warmth, only the cool professionalism of two people untangling shared pasts. When we adjourned, I realized I wasn't crying. I was relieved. The legal ties loosened. The emotional ones had been fraying for months. I stepped outside, inhaled the crisp air, and felt lightness I hadn't known since that restaurant betrayal. A chapter ended, a new one awaited. That evening, I closed my journal and reflected on the journey. Shock, rage, grief, self-care. Confrontation, resolution. Each phase had its own cruel lessons. I wasn't to blame. Boundaries are sacred. Healing is nonlinear. Most importantly, I rediscovered my voice, the one drowned out by loyalty when my instincts screamed for validation. The next morning, I updated my article draft. I found my husband cheating with my best friend during our anniversary dinner. Here's how I reclaim my life. I wrote about legal steps with practical tips, emotional tools from therapy, the power of chosen family, and the freedom and forgiveness. My aim was to turn pain into purpose. As I hit publish, I felt a surge of hope. Comments and messages poured in, women thanking me for sharing, men admitting their own mistakes, therapists offering further resources. My story had become a beacon, proof that betrayal, however devastating, could ignite transformation. That night, I sat on my balcony, jacarandas whispering in the breeze. My phone was silent, no messages from him, no calls from Julia. Instead, I had quiet certainty. I wrapped my arms around myself and whispered into the dark, I deserve loyalty. I choose honesty. I am enough. And in that whisper, I found the final hook, the moment every woman in pain waits for, the moment she realizes her own worth, unshaken by the treachery of others, shining brighter than any betrayal ever could. I never expected healing to arrive wrapped in ordinary days. After the mediation, when the long table had emptied and the courthouse quieted, I walked outside into a late afternoon sun that felt warmer than any embrace. The final legal papers slid across my life's ledger, our joint chapter closed. I folded them into my bag and stepped onto the sidewalk, the pavement, humming reassurance beneath my feet. In the days that followed, I carved out routines that felt like lifelines. Every morning I met my therapist for a brisk walk through the park. No words necessary for the first few blocks, just companionable silence and the steady click of our sneakers. I learned that sometimes grief doesn't need explaining, it simply needs witnessing. And in bearing witness to my own pain, I discovered the power of self-compassion. One Saturday, I volunteered at the animal shelter where I'd once promised Julia we'd adopt a puppy together. I walked wagging dogs down tree-lined paths and scratched a calico cat behind the ears. When I cradled a trembling terrier in my arms, she looked up at me with trusting eyes, and I felt my heart expand. This small creature had no memory of betrayal. Her love was pure and untethered. In her, I saw the possibility of starting over, of offering trust without fear. That afternoon, I found an old box of photos tucked in the back of a closet. Wedding snapshots, beach vacations, silly selfies with Julia and me making peace signs. I hesitated, hand suspended above the box. Then I opened it, and instead of flinching, I smiled at the memory of who I once was. I set a single photo beside my journal, us laughing in front of a carnival ride, and wrote beneath it, I honor our past, but I own my future. My phone buzzed with an email notification. The article I'd published. I found my husband cheating with my best friend during our anniversary dinner. Here's how I reclaimed my life. Had gone viral. Messages poured in, women thanking me for giving words to their pain. Therapists offering guest spots on podcasts. A local women's shelter asking if I'd speak at a healing workshop. I reread the note from the shelter director. Your courage will save lives. My chest tightened, but in a good way, like gratitude blooming. I replied with a simple yes. A week later, I stood on a small stage in a cozy community center. Rows of chairs filled with women's faces, some tear-stained, some determined, some uncertain. I opened with a hook that had ignited my own journey. Have you ever sat across from the person who's supposed to love you and felt your world crumble? The room breathed in the question, the silence, palpable. Then I shared my story, the anniversary dinner betrayal, the cafe refuge, the sisters, fierce love, the legal steps, the emotional work. I spoke of anger like fire, of grief like a river, of healing like sunrise. Afterwards, a woman approached, voice quivering. Your story made me feel seen. I thought I was the only one. We hugged, the kind of hug that transforms strangers into sisters. In that moment, I realized betrayal is a common wound, but solidarity is the salve. At home that evening, I sat on my balcony, sipping chamomile tea as jacaranda petals drifted. Like confetti, my ring finger was bare, no trace of promises broken or vows discarded. There was freedom in its emptiness. My phone lay beside me, open to a blank notes page. I tapped a final line. I choose myself. Later, I received a text from my ex-husband. I hope you're well. I paused, fingers poised above the keyboard. For a fleeting second, old hurts flared. Then I typed, I am. I hope you find peace. 2. I hit send and exhaled years of tension. Days turned into weeks. I returned to my photography course, capturing street murals bursting with color, candid portraits of friends and laughter, the iridescent shimmer of city lights at dusk. Each frame felt like reclaiming the lens through which I viewed the world. On a crisp autumn morning, I met a friend for coffee at our favorite cafe. We chatted about life's small victories, her promotion, my shelter volunteer shift, our mutual obsession with pumpkin spice lattes. The bell over the door jingled as another customer entered, and I realized how comfortable I felt in this ordinary rhythm. That night, I curled up in bed with a book of Greek mythology, a childhood fascination, resurfacing. As I read about goddesses who reinvented themselves, I thought of my own metamorphosis, the woman who confronted betrayal at 3 a.m., who stood in a cafe and dared to breathe again, who unraveled legal knots and sewed emotional stitches, who now leaned into the light of her own becoming. I drifted asleep with a smile. In dreams, I found a silhouette of myself dancing under jacaranda. Trees, petals swirling overhead, each bloom a testament to renewal. I woke at dawn, chest warm, with purpose, ready to write the next chapter. Because healing isn't a destination, it's a daily choice to show up, to trust again, to extend kindness to ourselves and others. And as the sun rose, I whispered into the quiet room, "This is my story, but it's also my beginning.